You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
And we will call this meeting the Branford Planning and Zoning Commission to order. It is Thursday, March 20th, 2025. I have about 7:04 p.m. We'll start by introducing members of the commission and staff. Commission member Joe Chadwick. Joe, are you here?
Joe Chadwick is present.
Thank you, Joe. Commission member Fred Russo. Fred, are you here?
Fred Russo is here.
Thank you, Fred. Joe Viuzzo, commission member. Joe, are you here?
Joe Viuzzo's here.
Thank you, Joe. Marcy Pelusi, commission member, are you here?
Marcy's here.
I'll just ask, is Massimo here? Massimo Liguri? I don't think he is. Don't see him. And Dave Dyer. Dave, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Dave's here, commission member. And our staff this evening is, first of all, our alumni town planner, Harry Smith, is helping us out a little bit tonight with the regulations. Harry, you're here?
I am here.
And our acting planner consultant is John Guskowski. John, are you here?
Good evening.
Thank you, John. Our zoning enforcement officer handling the IT chores is Jane Ellis. Jane, you're here?
Yes, I am.
And lurking in the background, our clerk recording secretary is Michelle Martin. I am Chuck Anders, chair. I'll start by asking our secretary, Fred Russo, to read the notice of public hearing.
Legal notice, Town of Branford. The Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Branford, Connecticut hereby gives notice of public hearings to be held on Thursday, March 20th, 2025 at 7 p.m. by remote technology to consider the applications listed below. Information regarding how to participate in the public hearings will be provided on the Commission's meetings agenda that will be posted on the town's website at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. Application 25-2.4, special exception for a dwelling containing a 4-dwelling unit located at 48 Cedar Street, Cedar Holdings LLC, care of Jerry Salduti, applicant and owner. At said hearings, all persons will have the right to be heard. Copies are on file in the Planning and Zoning Commission's office at the Planning and Zoning Department, 1019 Main Street, Branford, Connecticut, 06405. Written communications may be sent to the above address or to planning and zoning at branford-ct.gov. Branford Planning and Zoning Commission, C. Andres, chairperson.
Chuck Anders, chair. Thank you, Fred.
Yep.
We'll follow our normal format for public hearings, which is we start with the applicant going first, making its presentation, including any comments from any of its consultants. After the applicant is finished with the presentation, we turn it over to commission members and staff. We typically start with the town planner giving a summary of the staff report, open it up for questions and comments from commission members. At that point, we'll begin the public portion of our proceedings, and then we open it up for public comment. We ask that you state your name and address for the record and make your comments. When the public portion is done, we allow the applicant to respond to any of the public comments. We may or may not conclude, and we also follow up with any further questions from commission members or staff. We may or may not conclude the public hearing, depends how it goes. So that's the normal procedure. And I'll ask Harry, can you just review with the public and the applicants the process for participating in the remote hearing process?
Sure. Former town planner Harry Smith. If your computer has a microphone for two-way communication, and then during a public hearing, if you wish to speak, you can press the raise hand button, if you will, in the bottom line of your window, just below where all the faces are shown. Sometimes it's in the participant, depends on your software. If you don't have a microphone, you'll need to call in on a phone in order to speak. If you can't, for some reason, do that, try to wave your hands and hopefully we'll see you. If that does not work, you are not seen, try the chat function, and we'll try to keep monitoring that. The commission prefers that you not give comments through the chat because we don't want to miss them. They will be reserved after the meeting, but I can't guarantee you that they'll be considered during discussions. We try to monitor that, but we're not necessarily going to be on top of everything all at the same time. If you should note that if you do not have to type your full name in to view the meeting, though the commission asks that you give us your full name if you're speaking, or type it into your little window there. If you're joining by mobile application, you can click more in the lower right-hand corner and select raise hand. I think that's it.
Okay. And for all these hearings, we're supposed to say our name before we speak, with the idea that some of us may just be listening and may not see actually who's speaking. So by saying our name before we speak, we identify ourselves. So with that, we'll turn with our first item, our first public hearing, and the applicant is Lauren Wiggins, and the property owner is Meadow Street Properties. This is 151, 155 Meadow Street. This is a special exception for a church or place of worship. Is the applicant ready to proceed with that? Please, is, okay. You can proceed.
So this is my first time, obviously, at one of these hearings, so I am representing myself.
Can you just identify yourself for the record? I'm sorry.
Yes, Lauren Wiggins, and sitting next to me is my husband, Aaron.
And right now we just see a blank screen. Are you, I don't know what this is in front of us. Do we know that? That's Dave. Okay.
I think he was pinned, so I think I've taken that away. So hopefully you should be able to see whoever's speaking. If,
okay, great.
Jane's computer's set up that way.
Yes, got it. Okay, great. Okay, Ms. Wiggins, you can proceed.
Okay, so am I just stating what it is I'm?
Yes, you
Okay.
can explain what it is, what the proposal is, and just explain it for us, and explain why you believe it complies with the regs, if you have gotten into that at all, or just maybe a little background and what's going on. That would be helpful.
Okay. So I run a family ministry at like to do that at 151 Meadow Street. So my family ministry, we are a Christian ministry. We have family ministry meetings monthly, and I provide religious education and academic enrichment. Again, Christian education, enrichment to the children of the members of the ministry. So that is what I'm looking to do there. Not sure what else. I know we've put in all the did the A2 survey through my surveyor, and that went through. Did the revitalization hearing last week, went through that. So
and do you I mean, the line item is churches and places of worship. Are there worship services that you conduct on the property?
Yes, so we do monthly services. So the families, the members, we meet right now, because we are a small ministry. As families, we have family worship that takes place once a month on a Thursday. It's usually the last Thursday of the month. And then again, the children's ministry, we do children's ministry daily with that academic enrichment and Christian education program for the kids.
I see. And there's no exterior changes to the building or anything that you've proposed? No
changes to the exterior or to the interior. I'm not handy like that.
Is it just the second floor? I think of this as the Sarah's cupboard area, they have it. So
Yes,
you guys are the
so-
second floor, is that what it is?
Yep, the second floor and the first floor on the right. So Sarah's side cupboard is the bottom left. So I'm bottom right and currently upstairs as well.
Okay. Have you had any issues with parking at all? I understand that you're there now.
Yes.
Have there been any parking issues?
No parking issues. Again, we, usually when families are coming in the morning, the other business is not open. Afternoon has not been a problem when we have our ministry meetings, which is when, you know, most of the families are there all at the same time. Haven't had any issues. I know Joe, who runs, Sarah's Cupboard, he loves us, helps us cross the street if we go to the park. So no issues with parking.
Okay. And you have your monthly worships also in the upstairs area, I assume?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, do you have anything else, Ms. Wiggins?
Not unless there's any other specific questions that you're looking for.
Great, thank you. I'll ask our consultant planner, Mr. Guskowski, to summarize the staff report for us.
Sure. So for the record, John Guskowski, consulting planner. I'm just going to quickly share my screen. I find it just a little bit easier visually. Hopefully people can get a sense of what's going on here. So this is the property on Meadow Street. It's bounded by meadow on one side and railroad tracks on the other side. There are two existing buildings on the site. My understanding is the ministry is going in this building to the right on the second floor. Is that right, Ms. Wiggins?
So the upstairs is connected right and left. So, I mean, we have our ministry meetings, the monthly ones with all families take place on the left.
Okay. So the site is established. It's an existing building. There is existing striped parking and established landscaping along the border with Meadow Street. So it's a fairly simple interior change of use, which is actually going to be a fairly common theme this evening. We had no major concerns or comments. The one that the chairman already addressed to a certain extent is that there's really no indication, because obviously it's a shared use building. There's no specific indication in the application materials what the size of the congregation or the anticipated parking demand, and particularly parking timing, is going to be. Obviously, we heard from Ms. Wiggins that there's some drop-off happening in the mornings. But we would just seek some assurances, and again, the chairman started this conversation, that the existing parking, both the numbers and the timing, is sufficient to accommodate the change in use. But again, they've been operating there for some time, and if they're testifying that there is no problem with parking crunch or timing numbers, then we have no major concerns about this application.
Chuck Candace, sir. Thank you, Mr. Guskowski. Questions, comments from commission members, staff, before we open it up to the public? Marcy.
You said that you have children that it's an educational, I mean, is it like a homeschooling, or is it like a daycare? Is it the same children every day, 5 days a week, or is it like a after school? I'm just trying to understand the context and extent to which the ages and the education, and maybe how many classes, like are there 3 ages of 3 classes, just to get a sense of what the operation is a little bit better.
So not a daycare. The families that do come to me, they are families that homeschool their children. It's not the same kids all 5 days. Some come 2 days a week, some come 4 days a week. So every day is a different group. The most families that I have coming, all together, I have 13 families. So that question as to how big is the congregation? Right now, we are pretty small, hopefully growing, but again, when we grow, we'll be able to as much as I love the space, move into a bigger space that would accommodate. But right now we're a very small congregation.
So obviously, different age groups have different educational abilities or at different levels. So are you splitting them into, Tuesdays are ages 4 to 8 or whatever it might be kind of thing? Do you have slots for that?
No,
Or
we
you just-
do. We have two different groups right now, and each group is mixed in age. So it's up to right now, we have 7-year-olds are the oldest, and then we have kindergarten age. So 5 is the youngest. So they're mixed age, and we do whole group activities when we're doing, for instance, at Christmas, we did, the nativity story, put on a little mini play.
Right.
So that's where we come together and just mixed age.
Interesting. Right. So it almost seems more like an extracurricular program
Yes.
in addition to what you're doing with the congregation and the are there adult Bible study times separate from your meetings or?
Yep. So those are, again, our family ministry meetings are those monthly meetings right now. And that's usually starts with the children presenting. Like I said, at Christmas time, it was the nativity story, and then we do prayer, worship together as families. And sometimes the children stay, and sometimes, kind of like, if you go to any other church, the children are dismissed
Right.
and you go to the kids program.
So these are generally outside of normal business hours because of the other congregation schedules? Or,
Sometimes we've varied month to month. Sometimes we do the family services in the morning. Sometimes we do them in the afternoon. We have had a couple in the evening. So after Sarah's cupboard closes, 6:30 p.m.
yeah, it sounds like a moving target of parking. That's really why I'm asking the questions, is
Yeah.
trying to understand the flow of traffic on the site. And how many other tenants are in the space? Do you know?
It's Sarah's Cupboard and then OGS Technologies, and he's, I believe, a one-man operation.
And then you'd have the rest of the building on the right. You'd have basically the right building. And,
Yep.
And then Sarah's and then OG is upstairs on the left.
Yep, Sarah's side cupboard is part of the building I'm in, bottom left, but their main business is in the building, the left-hand building.
Right. Okay. That helps. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Marcy. Any other questions, comments from commission members or staff before we open up to the public?
Chuck, Fred Russo, just a quick
Fred.
question. Is there a name for your ministry?
Yes, we're USA Ministry.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Fred. Any other questions from commission members or staff before we open up to the public? Hearing none, then let's open it up to the public. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this application? One more time, does any member of the public wish to comment on this application? Jane or Harry, do you see anybody?
I do not see anybody.
Okay. Okay. Okay, it looks like there is no public comment on this. Does the applicant have any further comments you'd like to make, Ms. Wiggins?
Nope, not at this time.
Any further questions, comments from commission members or staff? Hearing none, then we can close this matter as a public hearing. Well, just one question, John. I noticed there were two sort of pro forma conditions of approval recommended in the staff report. Just, are you recommending that we would include those as conditions?
Yes, John Guskowski. Yes, Mr. Chairman, we recommended that provided the commission is satisfied with the information provided during public hearing, and the applicant has satisfactorily addressed the comments above, which again related primarily to parking and timing. We have no concerns, but recommend the following conditions. Number one, the approval shall not become effective until the certificate of action has been filed on the land records. Number two, any signage should require separate approval in accordance with section 6.6 of the Branford zoning regulations.
Great, thank you. Harry, can I just ask you a question? Certificate of action, is that something we use? I don't remember seeing.
We don't use that terminology. We just fold it into a notice of decision, basically.
Okay. Okay, so would we keep that condition as written, or could we maybe tweak it, or what do you think?
I think it's fine the way it is. It's
Okay,
just
that's fine.
terminology.
Great. Okay, great. Any other questions, comments from anyone? Hearing none, that will close this matter as a public hearing. We may be able to take this up after we complete our public hearings. Thank you, Ms. Wiggins. That brings us to our second item, which is Cedar Holdings LLC, 48 Cedar Street. This is a special exception for a dwelling containing 4 units. Is the applicant ready to proceed with this one?
Good
Mr.
evening, Jim Preddy, Criscolo Engineering, 420 East Main Street in Branford. Jerry Salduti, who is Cedar Street Holdings, is also on here. At least I saw him at some point. I think I'm going to go right to the map. If I can do that, share. You can see the screen, I hope, the map. Are you looking at the map or are you looking at me?
We see the
We
map.
can see the map.
Okay,
Map.
great. Okay, so 48 Cedar Street. It's at the corner, not quite at the corner of Cedar and Palmer Road. There's actually this odd triangular shaped piece here between the property and Palmer. It's an existing 3-family house now. The proposal is to add a garage with an additional dwelling unit on the second floor of the garage. So we're really only adding 1 unit here. There's 3 existing, but the special exception reads for a 3 or 4 unit dwelling in the zone. It needs a special exception. Again, there's a small gravel parking area here now. It will just get extended to be able to get into the garage. We have floor plans of the garage and the additional unit above. We submitted also applications of the garage addition, or elevations of the garage addition. Just for kind of an FYI, this is what the house looks like now. It was in the last 5 years, I think there's been quite a bit of cleanup here, siding and other things. Let's go back to this. So we did receive the staff report today, and I went out and took another look. A couple things to note. I did add a note about any lighting being less than 900 lumens that added on the front of the garage. None of the lighting on the existing house is changing. I also indicated where the existing landscaping around the building is now. The only tree that's even in question is this one on the corner here. It's actually a fairly large tree at the base, but it's split into, I believe, 4 trunks when you get about head height. It did show a little evidence of cracking. The owner would like to try to save that tree, cutting some limbs and maybe doing a little tree well around it. But I think unless it's cabled, it might have to come down. I guess really a arborist would need to take a look at it. But that would be the only one. There are some arborvitae bushes over here in the backyard that are planning to save and relocate to the property line between the little deck here and the property line. We do show stormwater infiltration for the additional roof area. And, we have silt fence and a stockpile area for topsoil with silt fence around that as well. The utilities will be coming through the existing building and no new curb cuts there. That's already there. So again, it's an existing 3-family house. We're just adding 1 unit above a garage. The special exception is really for the 4th unit. I mean, if they were just building a garage, we wouldn't really even be here because it's allowed in this zone. That's pretty much it. I will answer any questions.
Chuck Andrews here. Thank you, Mr. Guskowski. Mr. Preddy, I'm sorry. We're going to ask Mr. Guskowski to
Sure.
review the staff report. Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Guskowski, interim planner. Yeah, so I think the applicant did a good job of explaining what was going on. A couple of the notes in our staff comments did deal with the removal of trees and landscaping details. And I see that the plan set that the applicant's team put up there was modified, in the last couple of days. So it did show the plan set that was submitted last week or whenever did not show the trees that would remain and the relocation of the arborvitae. And the revised plan does show that. It shows the arborvitae to be relocated and the trees to be protected. It also included some details of lighting. And I would actually ask Mr. I'm sorry, the engineer. I missed your name. Sorry.
Jim Preddy.
Mr. Preddy, to maybe put that site plan back up so we can see the details. You added some notes on lighting, it appeared, which was the subject of one of my comments in the staff report.
Sure. Here you go. Oh, sorry. So this I have both plans here because this is the one that was submitted.
Right.
Jim Preddy again. We received the staff report this morning, so I added the note here about lighting, less than 900 lumens, less than 300 Kelvin, and I also field noted where the existing landscaping is around the building. That was just added today because that's when we got the staff report.
Okay. John Guskowski, thank you. Yeah, so those are a couple of the comments. Again, as the applicant stated, this is actually a fairly simple application. It's the addition of a garage that happens to have a 2-bedroom residential unit above it. The garage itself is a standard, residential scale 3-car garage placed to the rear of the existing building. The driveway, the gravel driveway area that's existing alongside the building will be extended to the new garage. We had questions about landscaping, which the applicant has responded to by adding some detail and certainly indicating that the existing arborvitae along near the property line would be relocated to maintain some additional buffer to the residential neighbor. We had questions about lighting details that has been added. The only really other question that we had was bicycle parking. So per, what is it, section 6.5.d.1, bicycle parking facilities shall be provided as part of new multifamily developments of 4 dwelling units or more. So no detail of bicycle parking facilities have been provided to my knowledge. Certainly they're building a garage. And so, I would accept a statement that, there is sufficient storage space in the garage for sufficient bicycle spaces. And otherwise, the other matters of, grading, drainage, soil erosion, the project is basically smaller than would be needed to trigger those provisions of section 6. Section 6.8, 6.9, 6.10. So at this time, aside from the statement about the parking storage, perhaps in the garage, most of our comments are satisfied. We noted a couple of conditions in our staff report that number 1, all conditions of previous approval shall remain in full force and effect as may apply. Number 2, any proposed site lighting shall be shown on the record site plan, including lighting details compliant with section 6.7 of the zoning regulations. And again, I would note here that the updated site plan has included lighting notes. And then finally, site plans shall be modified to demonstrate sufficient bicycle parking facilities compliant with section 6.5.d of the zoning regulations. And again, I think a condition requiring a note that bicycle storage will be located inside the new garage would be sufficient to satisfy that condition. That is all I have for right now, Mr. Chairman.
Chuck Innes here. Thank you, Mr. Guskowski. Are there questions, comments from commission members before we open up to the public? Marcy?
Yeah, so if it's a 3-family first house, I would anticipate needing 6 spaces. And then if you have 3 in the garage and potentially 2 more bedrooms in the back, you could need as many as 8 spaces. So I'm just wondering where the other 5 spaces, are they using on-street parking to accommodate that? Because it's, you know, close to town and on bus routes, or are they accounting for that in the site? And then, you know, then the only other concern I have is, you know, the tree, if they are going to save it, it's, you know, it's clearly the building and the pavement is going to be well within the drip line. And, you know, could they have considered doing a 1-bedroom apartment, or like, I don't know what depth they're using on the garage, you know, what size bays they're using or how deep it is, to know whether they could have, you know, taken a couple feet off the garage or pulled a couple feet off of the pavement to try to give a little bit more room around the tree. But I don't have a lot of confidence in the tree surviving the way it looks on the plan. I don't have any, you know, it looks like it's 3 to 4 feet from the trunk, and it's a fairly sizable tree. So there's obviously roots that are near the surface, and you know, when they go to dig for the foundations and the parking, it's going to be disrupted to half of the root system of the tree. So, you know, I think either we say it's fine to lose a tree, or can the size of the improvement be adjusted to, you know, help its survival? And then the other question was really how the parking's being provided for 8 spaces total if 3 are in the garage. Where are the other 5?
So I can answer that. First of all, I apologize. I have no idea what's going on with the video right now. But anyway, so there's enough parking for the 3-family on the site now. There's at least 5 spaces in that gravel area, and then, you know, we're adding the 3 garage spaces. So I think there's the adequate parking. Nobody parks on the street there now. As far as that tree, I suspect even without this addition, that trees days are probably numbered based on what I saw out there today. I'm not an arborist, but I had a similar tree in my own yard that I've had to take down before it hit the neighbor's house, because where the tree splits starts to crack, and that never gets any better. So I think that if they can't save it, if they can't get it worked out, then it'll come down.
So, Marcy, please, again, I would just like to see the parking spaces notated on the plan. Obviously, that's feasible if they're doing it now. And then if you're gonna lose the tree, yeah, so I would just denote on the plan to show that they fit with the driveway. I see it now. It was hard for me to tell from the plan. Thank you for that. And then the tree itself, if you're gonna lose a tree, I would just ask that maybe they plant 2 trees to replace it somewhere on the property.
That's not an issue. Yeah.
You know, because I think that makes more sense in trying to, and also for the new structure. You know, the care, you know, this, you know, you don't need the tree dropping on the new structure because it's been weakened, so.
Right, sure.
Chuck Inkster, thank you, Marcy. Other questions, comments from commission members?
Chuck, Fred Russo.
Fred?
This is to Jim. Jim, I'm just curious why the stairwell going up to the apartment is not an interior stairwell as opposed to one that's outside that could be more dangerous during inclement weather.
Jim Preddy again. There's both, Fred. There's the inside stair and outside.
Okay.
That stair comes down from the deck.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Other questions, comments from commission members or staff? Let's then open it up to the public. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this application? Looks like we have a hand from Yvonne Ciaflo.
Yvonne
Jake,
Shimbo.
yeah, yes.
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 So there's no garage there now. So we're building the garage with the apartment above it. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And it just zoomed by so fast. I just was wondering, just to give me a perspective of how big the garage is compared to how big the house is. Like, is the garage going to be the same size as the house?
It is approximately, Jim Preddy again, it is approximately the same footprint of the house, but the house is 3 floors.
3 floors, and this will essentially be 2 stories high?
Correct. Correct.
That was my only question for now. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Are there other questions and comments from members of the public? Any other member of the public wish to comment? See anyone, Jane or Harry?
I do not see anybody.
Okay, great. Thank
Don't
you.
either. No.
Ms. Fred, I know we did get a handwritten letter in opposition, it looked like. And Michelle sent that to us from the neighbor, it looks like.
Yes,
Is
we
that
do.
right? Was that you, Mr.? Was that? I don't know who wrote it.
This is from I think it's Amelia Mahowski
Okay.
I
Zelinsky. It's like
I
a,
could, I could probably clarify. So there was a
Sure.
mention in Jim Preddy again. There was mention in her letter about a previous application. I believe that there was in around 1989, maybe, an application to split the lot, build a new house in the back with a driveway between 48 and I think it's 50. I have a copy of the map. So this is the woman that wrote the letter, I believe, or the daughter maybe. And this is 48. So there was a proposal to split the lot, build a house back here with a driveway and a 15-foot fee strip between the two properties. That never happened. I think it was not approved, so it never happened. And I think that's the previous approval she was referring to. I could see why that was probably not well received.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Brody. Any other questions or comments from the applicant?
No, again, just because of the way it was advertised, I just want to be clear. We're only adding 1 unit. We're not adding 4.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Brady. Any other questions, comments from members of the public? I mean, excuse me, from commission members or staff?
Harry Smith,
here.
former town planner. Jim, you, of course, I don't know if maybe you've already sent it in a copy of the revised site plan, just so we have it. If you could email it to us.
The plan I revised today, I did send to Jane earlier. Yes.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. And Jane, you received that?
Yes, and it was Michelle is going to add it into the record.
Great. Okay, thanks. Anything else from anyone?
Mr. Chairman?
Members or staff? Okay, then we can close this matter as a public hearing. Again, this may be something we can take up in a bit. Thank you, Mr. Preddy.
Thank you.
We have a number of old business items listed on the agenda. But before we get to those, why don't we take up the public hearing items that we just considered? Item number 1 was the church application, church places of worship, school accessory use application for 151, 155 Meadow Street. And Mr. Guskowski, maybe you can pull up the staff report and just the last page of that.
Sure thing. Just give me a moment.
And we'll run through. I don't think there were no public comments on that. I mean, Marcy, you had some questions mainly about the parking. Seems like that hadn't been an issue. We did explore that a bit. Any comments from any of the commission members about this before we request a motion? Hearing none, then Fred, did you have something?
No, I'm just talking out loud. It seems pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, there's no changes to the outside. It's really just a change of use, and it doesn't seem to have any adverse parking impact. So if someone, if no one has any comments, someone make a motion, we approve the application and include the 2 conditions in the staff recommendation. That's in the staff report and that's presently displayed in front of us.
Fred Russo will make that recommendation or that motion.
Motion to approve by Fred with the 2 conditions. Is there a second?
Marcio, second.
Second by Marcy. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Joe Chadwick,
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo,
Fred Russo is in favor.
Joe Vayuzo,
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Marcy,
Marcy's in favor.
and the chair is also in favor, so that application's approved. Let's bring up the next one, and that's the one we just heard for 48 Cedar Street, the additional dwelling over the garage. And thank you, Mr. Guskowski, for pulling up that staff report. Again, I think, Marcy, you indicated, I think that if the tree is removed, that it should be replaced with
2 smaller trees would be sufficient.
two smaller trees. So we can add that maybe as a condition as well. right?
Yes, I would say 2 small, 2, 1 to 2 inch caliper native shade trees. I think it's because it's an oak, right? So, I mean, we'd want to not, we don't want to lose, I don't know what kind of oak it is, but, we want to save white oaks if it's a white oak and encourage native planting. So I would just include that.
Okay, so
I
how
mean, I
would
wouldn't
we,
specify where they need to put it. I mean, it looks like there's a lot of space in the back that they could very easily
Right.
put a couple trees.
so how we want to describe that additional condition?
say-
If the tree, I
Yeah.
guess we have to specify where the tree is.
Should loss of the 16-inch oak occur due to construction or, disease, 1 to 2 inch caliper native shade trees shall be planted in its stead or in to replace it, on the site. And then that seems to be sufficient to me.
Okay,
If you got all that, I know I talk fast.
yeah, no, that's fine. John, are you making notes?
I could, I was making notes separately, but I could add a motion
Oh.
or add this to the conditions right now.
I love it that you can type right on there. That I know Evan could do that as well. So that's one of the benefits of remote versus live.
Well, we're spoiled that way too.
I know it.
So he knows.
Uh,
2 native
John, you're
shade
talking-
trees.
okay, thank you.
2 native 1 to 2 inch caliper shade trees.
Does that look good, Marcy?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Anyone else have any other conditions or anything they want to add or other thoughts?
Or how
Again,
about
this,
be lost due to construction? Not
Okay.
during, because it could have, it's likely that it'll die a slow death as a result of the construction due to construction, just, leave it general.
okay,
So if they want to try to save it and it survives, but I mean, I would say they'll know within the first couple of years whether it's going to survive or not.
sure. Any other questions or comments from anyone? If not, then someone make a motion to approve the application by adopting the findings in the 4 conditions as recommended in the staff report presently being shown on our screens.
I'll make that motion, Marcy.
Motion to approve by Marcy. Is there a second?
Joe Vayuso seconds.
Second by Joe. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Joe Chadwick,
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo,
Fred Russo is in favor.
Joe Vayuzo,
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Marcy,
Marcy's in favor.
and Chair is also in favor. Okay, moving on with our agenda, the next items we're going under old business. Our first item of old business is our planning and zoning or our just zoning regulation amendments. We had the public hearing. We closed the public hearing last time, but we asked Harry to do a little bit of extra research. And Harry, you going to report back to us?
Sure, Harry Smith, former town planner. I'm sure everyone recalls here's where we stopped with the deliberations, the last meeting of the commission. I was asked to contact our environmental analyst at DEP regarding a letter that was sent and added to the record about concerns they had with changes proposed to the distance from critical coastal resources and in the wetlands within which the exclusions provided by section 6.8C do not apply. So within those areas, the special exception required by section 6.8 for grading changes, there's threshold requirements, there's exceptions for other concerns, but within 100 feet of an inland wetland, 100 feet of a critical coastal resource, those do not apply. And no matter what you do, down to the point of moving a very small amount of earth material or removing vegetation, a special exception approval is required for that. So I did get in touch with our environmental analyst, and it's in a sort of boil a discussion down to a thumbnail. Their primary concern, as I understand it, is that they would want to be sure that there is review of developments, particularly those that are within 100 feet of a critical coastal resource. I did go back to get a little bit of information and examples of how this regulation has been applied and what kind of things have come in under it. So I went back through year 2024 and I pulled out all the special exception applications under 6.8 that applied, and we had 21 of them. 7 of them were for developments or changes in grading within 100 feet of a critical coastal resource, and 14 were for similar items within 100 feet of an inland wetland. So I did go over with our environmental analyst, Mr. Braden Lynn, the 7 that were within a critical coastal resource, that 100-foot separation distance. And all of them also needed a CAM approval, the exception of 1. That one was development of a new house on a subdivision lot at 115 Thimble Islands Road, which is that property on the right side, just as after you go under the railroad bridge at Stony Creek. You may recall the subdivision there that preserved an existing house right against the road and allowed the development of another lot that was accessed by an easement up against the railroad tracks. That new property, new lot, kind of sloped down to a tidal wetland that's back there. They did get approval originally for the house, the grading, and that original approval had a CAM, but they came back in and got approval from the commission for modification of that original approval to add a small retaining wall to handle the grading differential a little bit. So it was about a 2-foot retaining wall. It's a very small modification, but that small modification did not get a CAM. So it's kind of a small technical point, but it does illustrate that it's not a complete overlap, CAM and the 6.8 special exception approval. So we did talk about some possible alternatives to what is being proposed in the package of amendments. I suggested something about perhaps there are several exemptions to the CAM process. I think every statutory exemption has been adopted by the commission and the regulations. And said, well, how about we remove the exemptions for properties with something proposed within 100 feet of a critical coastal resource. Mr. Lynn said that Old Saybrook apparently does do this. So I think that is one option. Another option could be looking at the process of 6.8, which just basically has a, black or white, either or. So, hey, you don't need it, or you do need a full special exception. Well, you could have it set up so that some things just need a site plan review, not a special exception. And some other things might just need a staff review, and you apply some of the standards in 6.8. So I think a lot more work probably could be done, probably should be done before the commission adopts this change based on all the information that was presented during the public hearing, and just rethinking and looking at 6.8 and how it's applied, and some possibilities on making it a little more nuanced, if you will, to possibly different properties, if it's size properties, impacts on neighboring properties, whether the work is 50 feet from adjoining properties or 50 feet back from critical coastal resource, or other criteria that the commission might want to put in place. So you can sort of fine tune the whole business. That's certainly beyond, I think, the scope of this amendment application package. So at this point, I'd suggest to the commission, and I should go back to wetlands, I guess, before I said anything. In the wetlands, we also talked about briefly, I think the concern from the commission and staff has been there's basically regulatory overlap with the role of the Inland Wetlands Agency. Again, it's not clear, since I don't have a kind of understanding of the Inland Wetlands Agency regulation process that staff there has, but I think before probably we go ahead based on testimony that's been presented during the public hearing, really get a clear idea of what regulatory criteria, standards, and mechanisms 6.8 includes that the Inland Wetlands Agency process does not. Is there any value to having some or all of them brought into play? And again, how could we do that? Does it need to be a special exception process? Could it be a staff review, or could it be a site plan consideration? So I think the whole issue should be re-examined before the commission probably goes ahead at this point, based on all the information presented during the public hearing and my discussion with staff up at DEP. So are there any questions about that before I go any further?
Yeah, no, so you're saying let's just keep the status quo for now, but we want to look at it further.
Yeah,
I mean, the main
absolutely.
reason for doing this is that we thought there were too many applications and it was too wordy and too much. It was unnecessary, given the other regulations that covered it. And maybe there's another way of lessening the load, but right now, keep it as is because of the concerns and other ways to possibly tweak it.
Exactly. So
Okay,
I think, I mean, my recollection is that we've gone over all the proposed amendments, and there were some additions that staff brought up, and a couple things that commission members have brought up that could be, as a body, a collection, could be modifications to the original proposal. And I do have that in a new document I just sent to the commission before the meeting, and can run through that very quickly if you like.
That makes sense. So in other words, maybe we might be in a position to vote tonight. Is that the suggestion? And let's get through. We've sort of been over this a number of times, but yeah.
I think if that's the commission's desire, this document would give you what you need to do that.
Okay. Okay, why don't you pull up the document and we'll go through it. And if anyone should feel free to jump in as we're going through it. And you'll point out the ones that were, because we decided not to go forward on a couple things, and you'll highlight those.
Yep.
Right. Okay.
So hopefully everyone should be able to see my screen with this document dated March 20th, 2025.
Yes.
Okay. So everything that was originally proposed to be stricken is shown in black strikeout, and everything that was originally proposed to be added is shown in bold and double underlined. Modifications that have come up either during deliberations or discussion during the public hearing to the original document was all in black and white are shown in underlined red text and red strikeout. So I'm not going to, unless anybody wants to jump in and ask any questions, I'm going to blaze over everything in black type and just go down to modifications. But we talked, there's a handful of them. So even though we talked about most of them before, I'll just stop and pause on them. This was discussed during the, if you will, development of the package of regulations, and for whatever reason did not make it in. It was one of the last things we talked about. So we've talked about these utility required service platforms within floodplain and how to provide for them. So this is something we talked about before. The shed's 200 square feet or smaller, has always been there, but that wording here was proposing to strike out and just reword the whole thing so that it just reads as follows. And there's two things that would apply to the shed's 200 square feet or smaller. All these utility required service platforms, including the stairs required to access them. This was a requirement of Eversource that they be elevated above the 100-year flood limit. And the stairs would be, I think, mandatory requirement for their personnel to service them if that's required. So I'm just going to keep jumping unless anyone stops me here. So here's what we just talked about. So I've proposed in red here, basically taking this section back to the current wording in the zoning regulations. So the 25 is stricken out. Originally it was 100 struck out, 25 in double underline. So the only thing left here would be within 100 feet of a critical coastal resource or an inland wetland, just as the wording currently exists in the regulations. So no amendment would be proposed here. The text would just stay here by way of context to changes proposed down here in number 5, which is basically just correcting a typo. It was here since 2011. We talked about all this, so I'll just keep going to the next red item. During, I think, the public hearing, it was noted that the regulations did not refer to the current version of the Connecticut Guidelines of Soil Erosion and Sedimentation Control. So just updated the date here. So the only reason why this whole section is here is to update 2002 to 2024. There was a comment, I think by you, Mr. Chairman, about just to clarify that it's not all projects would not have to have a stormwater management best management practice plan, only those that meet the threshold requirements of section 6.9C. That's probably implied there, and I think it is, but this would clarify and make it super clear that there's a limitation here. And again, this is another comment that the stormwater maintenance plan should include plantings in the stormwater retention basins that are proposed for the purposes of water quality treatment, in addition to the other items noted here. So that's been added here as well. This is a change was proposed to make the measurement consistent with retaining wall measurements in another section, another part of 613C. So rather than trying to figure out the top of the footing, which could be a foot or more underneath the ground, just have the measurement be from the finished grade, the bottom of the wall to the top of the wall. And there was a little issue here. The word wall inadvertently got crossed out, so we've added it back here. In 613C3, this was originally proposed as a follow-up to an interpretation the commission made about retaining walls back, I think, a couple months before I got here in 2014. During deliberation at the last meeting, my understanding is the commission did not want to go forward with this change, so it's proposed to be stricken out. So the wording of 613C3 would be exactly what it is in the current regulations, but no change. Again, we've talked about this, just a little typo change. I'm not going to go through all this unless somebody has questions. This was discussed again during the last part of the development process before the application of this package of amendments. Inadvertently did not get included. But after discussion, thought we could include this procedurally with this package. And this just eliminates the requirement of every site plan associated with a special exception having to be filed with the town clerk's office. We had a whole discussion about how oftentimes there's special exceptions for a change of use, and the site plan filed might be already approved site plan or might be years old, and that there's really no need to do that since we'll filed copy and we have everything now digitally available. And it's just basically, even though the town clerk's office also has things available digitally, their understanding is they are retaining paper copies, and this language would require the filing of paper copies. So it's proposed to be stricken. That was agreed to, is my understanding, by the commission during a previous meeting. So we simply did not add the word reserved here to sort of preserve the numbering. So that's proposed to be added. How it got struck out, I'm just seeing this for the first time. So the word reserved here should not be stricken out. And this is a PDF, so I can't change it on the fly, but I'll have to note that in any motion the commission wants to make to approve it. My apologies. So I think that might be it for the red modifications, except for this wording down here. Under bonding, we had talked about this would, the wording as originally proposed would probably lead to people coming with bonds at $4,999 potentially, in that, just to make it cleaner and more real world, if you will, equal to or less than, we just threw the words equal to or in here to allow people to come up with proposed bonds at $5,000 that could be established and released by the zoning officer or the town planner without the approval of the commission. That, I believe, is it. So the only little wrinkle here is making sure that the word reserved gets in. So, up here. Under our friend, the motor vehicle location approval process, which we had a big discussion, and since it's technically not part of the zoning statutes, that just take this out, because frankly, over the last, and ever since I've been in Connecticut for 20 years, I think it seems like every other year or two, something's changed with respect to it. And there's no reason to think it won't change again in the future. So if there are any questions, otherwise I'll stop and wait for the commission to decide what you want to do.
Great. Chuck Anderson, thanks, Harry. Does anyone, I think does everyone understand? Harry, did you said you sent these to us? Because I'm not sure.
I just did before the meeting, so I apologize. I just double checking and finalizing them before the meeting.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I got them, but
yeah, almost everything in red was in the prior document that was dated March 6th, I believe. The only two things that I added were the retaining wall, getting rid of that proposed amendment, and getting rid of the changes to 6.8.
Okay.
Preamble to 6.8C, I believe.
Okay, so we've sort of, couple of the changes, we've removed them, and otherwise, and we've added a few tweaks here and there. So let's just go around. Joe, Chadwick, any thoughts, comments? You think we're ready to vote on these? Joe, I think you're muted.
I'm sorry, I was on mute.
Yeah.
I've been sniffling and the dog's been barking in the background. Turn the torpedoes full speed ahead.
Okay, so let's do it. Okay. Fred Russo, thoughts, comments?
I agree with Joe. I think Harry did a very good job on this, and I think we're ready to take it to the vote.
Okay. Excellent. Thanks, Fred. Joe Vayuso?
Yeah, I think so too. I think we should take it to a vote.
Great, thanks. Marcy?
Yes, all good.
Yeah.
here.
Ready to go? Okay,
Yep.
I think so too. Okay, so I think at this point then we're ready for a motion to approve the proposed package of amendments to the zoning regulations. We need to make a finding of that they are in accordance with the comprehensive plan and also consistent with the plan of conservation and development. And we need to set an effective date sometime after publication.
Yes, staff would suggest maybe the 11th of April will give us one additional Thursday in case we somehow don't miss the paper publication deadline.
Okay. Okay, then is someone ready to make a motion that we approve these amendments with those findings again of consistency with the plan of conservation and development and finding that they're in accordance with the comprehensive plan of zoning and with an effective date of April 11th. And again, it's the package that Harry just explained to us that he just sent to us.
Fred Russo will make that motion.
Motion by Fred. Is there a second?
Chadwick seconds.
Second by Joe Chadwick. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Joe Chadwick,
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo,
Fred Russo is in favor.
Joe Vayuso,
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Marcy,
Marcy's in favor.
and the chair is also in favor. So
Okay.
great to get, yes.
Yeah, could I just note for the record that I
Oh,
believe
yes.
Marcy
The
Cluzo
cha-
recused herself, but the section she recused herself about is not included in the application package you guys just.
That's right. Yeah,
Okay.
she,
That's sort of a
she-
moot recusal at this point, right?
right, yeah. And also with it, adding the word reserved is included in that, as you pointed out.
Yeah, thank you.
Right. Okay. So then moving on, then that was the first item of old business. And the next item that's scheduled for public hearing at our next meeting. That's 38 Howard Avenue. So we'll consider that then. And then the last Mariners Landing is coming back for a special exception and site plan modifications. And that was scheduled for our second meeting in April. That brings us then to new business. Item number one is Zachary Ciancolo, applicant Thomas Callagher, owner, 1100 West Main Street. This is a site plan change of use to fast food with no drive-through. Mr. Guskowski, I guess, Harry, you can, is this the, I wasn't, is this the plan in front of us or?
Harry's just about to take it down.
Okay,
Got it.
great. Okay, Ms. Guskowski, you want to go over this with us?
Sure, John Guskowski, interim planner. Before I put the site plan up, I just want to give people a little orientation of where we're talking about. This is 1100 West Main, US Route 1. It's a multiple building plaza. And the property obviously established, the building in question is here to the right of the screen currently, or most recently, Tommy's Wax Center. And what is being proposed is basically a quick service food, or fast food, but no drive-through. My understanding, it's a smoothie salads place. So it's called Fresh Greens. And essentially the only thing changing is what the activity inside the building and ultimately the signage that will go on the building. No site changes, landscaping, lighting, parking are proposed. There's one issue. I mentioned earlier that we have a number of applications today that are basically just changes of use with basically little or no site changes. And so the thing that we wanted to address is a portion of the zoning regulations, section 9.6.b, and I will just throw that on the screen quickly. And again, the details of this one it's the existing use is an allowable, personal services retail. The proposed use is an existing, or is an allowable use, food service. Section 9.6, which is the site plan portion of the zoning regulations, notes that a site plan can be, I'm looking at little number 3 here, notwithstanding the above, a site plan application shall not be required for interior renovations and modifications for space within a structure previously approved by the commission as a site plan application, provided that one, and I apologize for reading this, but it's important to our thinking. One, the uses for which such changes are to be made have received all other permits required by these regulations. 2, there are no exterior alterations to the structure or site. 3, there is no additional requirement for parking based on interior layout submitted by the applicant. And 4, the site is in compliance with all aspects of a previously approved site plan. So I sort of had a question of whether or not this actually needed to come to the commission at all, given the fact that no site plan application would be required if it's just interior. However, the phrase under little 1, the uses for which such changes are to be made have received all other permits required by these regulations. It's a little bit of a circular referential thing, because both the existing use, which again, retail personal service, and the proposed use, which is, fast food without drive-through, are both site plan uses. And so a site plan would be required. That's one of the other permits required, one of the permits required. So do you need a site plan not to have to submit a site plan as one of the permits required? My understanding is that past practice of the commission and the staff has been to basically handle this administratively. Again, if there's no site changes and the only real substantive changes inside the building, could be handled on a staff level. But this is my first meeting with you folks, and out of an abundance of caution, we just wanted to make sure that you took a look at this and were able to opine if you concurred with past practice, or this is something that you would like to see going forward. Does that make sense, Mr. Chairman?
Chuck Innes here. Thank you, Mr. Kuskowski. Yes, that makes sense. My understanding, we have allowed changes of use, simply we call them tenant fit out. So some things don't need to come before the commission. That's again, they didn't come before us. If the use goes from site plan to special exception, then yes, they would come before us, and we've received a number of those. Or even one special exception to another special exception. I think we've approved those. But I think that's correct. If it's just an as-of-right site plan use to another as-of-right site plan use, and there's no exterior changes, then I think, that criteria applies. Harry, you're here. Is that consistent with your understanding of how we've interpreted the section?
Harry Smith, former town planner. Absolutely. I think John's entirely correct. The criteria is listed right there. So as long as the application complies with everything there, and the site's in conformance to any prior approved site plan, and that there is a prior approved site plan, then doesn't need to go in. Absolutely.
Okay. So I guess in this one, was there an approved site plan? And I mean, does it meet the 4 criteria? Or you had a question about number 1, but how about the other 3? I guess I think it.
Right. So John Kuskowski, yes, my understanding is the other 3 criteria were met. There's no special additional permissions, and all changes are in fact to the interior of the building. And so I would just note, I'm pulling up the staff report now. Again, the findings reference this section 96B3, just so that the commission can make the determination that this category of approval is, allowable administratively. And then I would just then note the condition that no additional signage or new or replacement lighting shall be installed without planning and zoning approval or that of its staff, to be in conformance with signage and lighting of the zoning regulations. So, because obviously that at this point, that is likely the only exterior change is the signage.
Okay. I'll just run around. You've heard, I agree with John and Harry's interpretation, so that for this application, it wouldn't actually need to have come before us. But anyway, let's I'll go around. Joe Chadwick, thoughts?
I'm in complete agreement. The less burdensome we could make the process, I think the more effective we could be in enforcing things that are important.
Thanks, Joe. Fred?
Again, I agree with Joe. I think he said it perfectly. So yeah, I agree.
Great. Joe Vayuso?
Yeah, I'm also in agreement. This is just another use with no changes other than interior.
Great. Marcy?
I'm good.
Okay. Dave Dwyer, I'm gonna, because we're sort of on a bigger policy question, so it's not a particular application. Any thoughts? You agree? You're muted, Dave. I know, I just want to.
He's muted.
Well,
I'm sorry, I thought I unmuted.
okay.
I agree. I agree
Okay.
fully.
Right. Okay, great. Thanks, Dave. Okay, so do you need us to vote on the application? John, should we approve you have a consensus on the interpretation? Do we,
Yeah.
I mean, we can vote on this.
Yeah,
What do you
I mean, I think a consensus is probably sufficient for the staff to proceed, but you know, if you wanted to make it a formal motion, that's certainly more formal.
The
Okay.
extent to which it's an agenda item, don't you think we should close it as a vote?
Sure, we can do that. Can you pull up your staff recommendation?
Yes. Just a moment.
Yeah.
I believe this is, wait, do you see 116 North Main or do you see 1100 West Main?
This one is 116.
Okay.
This is the
sorry,
next one, John.
I shared the wrong document. Okay. 116 there. Okay. This is the one. So yes, the condition as noted below, no additional signage or new or replacement lighting shall be installed without planning and zoning approval or that of its staff, whichever may be appropriate for compliance with the proposed signage or lighting with the zoning regulations.
Someone may make a motion to approve the application with the finding, again, that it complies with those, that section and the condition.
Chadwick makes that motion.
Motion to approve by Joe Chadwick. Is there a second?
Marcy will second.
Second by Marcy. Further discussion. All those in favor, Joe Chadwick,
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo,
Fred Russo is in favor.
Joe Vayuso,
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Marcy Palusi,
Marcy's in favor.
and Chair's also in favor. And then we have the final one, which is another in this category, change of use. And this is item number 2, Sherry Sugar and Spice Bakery, 116 North Main Street, LLC. You want to review that with us?
Sure.
John?
John Guskowski. I don't have the site plan application in front of me, but this is again the same category. This is 116 North Main, and as you see, it's an existing retail plaza. The proposal is to convert this end unit, which is currently Beauty Works, or most recently Beauty Works, into a bakery. So basically retail to food service, with beyond signage, no further exterior changes. We received as part of the application packet, a parking allocation designation that indicates the total number of spaces and allocates parking for each of the existing and proposed uses. However, the thing that we note is that on the site plan, the parking lot is shown as striped, so we can easily count and delineate the numbers and locations of parking. As you see here in the existing conditions, parking is not striped. So again, this following the commission's finding that exterior changes, in absence of exterior changes, site plan uses to the inside of the building can be approved essentially administratively. the one note we would make on this is that the parking lot would be basically striped to reflect the proposed conditions in the application.
Have you
And I will-
suggested that as a condition on your thing? or-
I have, let me bring that up. And I would also just like to note that for both this and the prior application and review, the assistance of Jane Ellis, your zoning enforcement officer, was very, very helpful. She did a lot of the analysis, and you are lucky to have her. So this is the recommendation. Hopefully you can see that on the screen.
Yes.
So we noted in the staff recommendation that the lot is to be striped accurately to reflect the site plan. In the findings, again, I repeated the matter of the commission allowing staff to handle these interior site plan changes administratively. And then again, noting that no additional signage, new or replacement lighting shall be installed without planning and zoning approval or that of its staff, whichever may be appropriate for compliance with proposed sighting or lighting, signage or lighting with the zoning regulations. Essentially
Okay,
identical to the prior.
Do we need to add the striping as a condition?
Well, this is maybe a question for you, Mr. Chairman. I would, is it, there's a question of, can you condition a site plan approval? But yeah, I would stipulate that that the parking lot reflects the proposed conditions.
Okay, so it should be a condition then. Yeah, I mean, we add conditions all the time, right? So I mean,
Okay.
Yeah, Chuck
Right.
Chadwick speaking. Chuck, can we compel a landlord to make improvements to the property in the case of a tenant application?
I mean, it happens all the time. I mean, we get these battles. I mean, and that's why we end up fighting. We find every way because the landlord typically doesn't want to do it. But you know, the regulations require it. We don't look at the use, not the user, frankly, who owns what. It's just the site. But yeah, it's the distinction is not in the regulations. It's you know, whatever. Presumably, I mean, one of the conditions of whatever it was, 9.6B or whatever it was, says that they're in compliance with the previous conditions, and the site plan shows it striped, I guess, and it isn't. So they would need to do that to bring it in compliance with the approved site plan. That's my understanding what John said. But so I don't know. I mean, I guess.
Land,
What do people think? Yeah, Jane.
Jane Ellis, CEO.
Yeah.
The landlord actually produced a new site plan for this application for the tenant, showing the correct striping, as a previous older site plan had parking striping in the back, which is no longer the case now. So they did go and get a new site plan with what they are proposing as the current conditions for parking, which were different from an older site plan that had striped parking in the back.
Okay, so the striping is shown on the new site plan. And so by approving the site plan, we're requiring them to do it. So we don't need to add as a condition. John, was that what you were suggesting that I was probably messing up?
John Giskowski, yeah, you summarized it better than I was doing.
Okay. Okay, so we don't need to add that as a condition because it's already shown on their site plan, and they have to show they've theoretically conformed with their site plan before they can get their COs or whatever, right? Okay. Okay, so then we can just probably adopt the findings and condition, right?
Hey, Chuck, can I just make an observation?
Yes, absolutely.
Marcy. So typically, you know, a landlord is not compelled to make site improvements until there's a change in the tenant. And often it's the tenant that requires things of the site. And it's a bit logical to me that, you know, those requirements should also be reflective of what our zone requires.
Sure.
But it's precisely when a tenant is changing that, you know, the owner of the property is most compelled to do improvements, and because some of that can be, can be offset in the negotiation of the tenant landlord agreement and the terms as far as triple net and all that kind of thing. So to
Yeah.
me, it's logical that, I mean, I don't think it would be fair for us to just arbitrarily go around town and say, okay, this isn't conforming, and, impose a notice to the owners to update situations. I think that the time that it's feasible to do that, because, tenants do often, well, good tenants and good landlords will have long-term relationships, and things will, naturally be maintained. But, when that doesn't happen is when I think it's good to have a little bit of town encouragement to update planting or keep things, parking striped, or provide handicap access, and so on and so forth, even though it is a bit costly to the landlord. But that's the opportunity for the landlord to, if the market conditions are working, to get that rolled into the rent, the new
Right.
rent, and to attract the tenant.
Yeah, Marcy, and that's an excellent point. Yeah, that's an occasion, usually a source of additional income that, it's kind of fair to require some site improvements. Our regs also, remember, we have this vague provision in our regs that say that they must bring into conformance, to the extent practical, all aspects of the site that don't conform to the regulations. So you have a non-conforming site, new tenant comes in. We've typically it's just like landscaping and lighting, just get the lighting fixed and whatever. But sometimes it would be sidewalks or things like, it depends how much we.
Well, I think handicap
yeah.
accessibility is an important one in that scenario.
That's not really a zone, that's a building code issue. That's not a zoning issue, but.
Well, right.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah,
for
okay,
sidewalks, you want handicap,
Yeah.
and it's, it's a time to evaluate whether the original site plan worked well. I mean, I've seen occasions where you've got retail strip scenarios, and you've got large beds of planting and controlled access point to the doorway, and people just want to cut right through the planting. It's not a good solution, right? And so, that would be the opportunity to either get relief of that, or to, add planting somewhere else, or what have you. So,
Okay.
Well,
Well, then,
if you
yes,
could indulge me,
Joe.
if you could indulge me on one more, oh, that guy's at it again, recommendation.
Sure.
Should the commission, could you put that back up again, please, John? Keep that up. That text. Should the commission decide to approve the site plan, the findings and conditions are recommended, not required. It's a pretty declarative sentence that they're recommended, and there is no inherent requirement. So we need to rephrase that if we're gonna, require anything.
Yeah, I think that's not part of our motion. That's just part of his staff report.
Right.
I mean, that's how I'm reading it. Yeah.
But
The motion would
the
be.
motion is going to be to adopt the staff report. If the staff report is a
Oh, yeah,
recommendation
to approve,
rather
it's
than
typically the findings and condition, although this finding is a little weird. I think we could just approve it with the condition. We don't need any findings, it
Okay.
conforms with the regulations, so.
but I'd like to see the condition be that the parking lot be striped, because
Yeah,
whenever you have a parking lot, but that's not striped, there's confusion, and you don't get the number of spaces that you need, and people are terrible parkers,
Right, that's part of the proposal. They proposed to stripe it,
Yeah.
didn't they? That's a site plan shows it's striped.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
we can add it as another condition.
Well, or
Yeah.
just the condition that the site plan be
Be
amended as
striped as
proposed, or
shown on the
something.
site plan, right,
Yeah.
yeah. The striping occur as shown on the site plan, prior to issuance of certificate of occupancy or something. I don't know.
Right.
John, can you add that?
Yes, John Guskowski. So we'll add a condition number 2.
Right, yeah, which I think probably is unnecessary, because they would have to do it anyway, but anyway. Or put, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy.
Do they include any
Certificate of
landscaping?
zoning
Zoning
compliance.
compliance, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Was any landscape review done on this?
No, we didn't, we didn't, I mean, we haven't, because we've determined that they don't even need to come before us. It's a
Does it,
staff approval. They don't even
Huh.
need site plan approval.
Okay.
That's sort of the preamble, but you're right. I think if it was coming before us, and I think why it didn't need to come before us, so why are we doing it? Because it's on the agenda, Joe pointed out, and it doesn't hurt. So, but yeah, this is the typical things we would look at is lighting and landscaping. And if there was a crazy dumpster location or little tweaks like that, or sidewalks for big things, but we don't. Again, we've decided this type of application, when it's a change of use only, and it's also for an as of right use, for one as of right use for another as of right use, it doesn't even come to us at all if it complies to that. If it was a special permit use, that's when we start going to those tweaks, I think. But do you want, and does anyone else want to see, do you want to see the landscaping? Do we want to even go there, or are we just good as seeing this as a tenant fit out? They've submitted this site plan. We want them to build it out. We want the parking there, but if that's the case, then we would just approve the application with the two conditions.
It's a tenant fit out, but let's not overextend ourselves.
Okay. So then, does someone want to make a motion to approve the application with the two conditions in the staff report?
Chadwick makes that motion.
Motion by Joe Chadwick. Is there a second? It's I don't know why we're hearing a double here. Is there a second?
Marcio second.
Second by Marcy. Any further discussion? All in favor, Joe Chadwick,
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo,
Brad Russo's in favor.
Joe Vayuso,
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Marcy,
Marcy's in favor.
and the chair is also in favor. Oh, okay, I guess you can take that off the screen, John. Are we still hearing double?
No.
No.
Good.
This John Guskowski, I don't mean to point fingers. The echo is coming from Joe Vayuso, so I muted him for now.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Joe. Okay, so moving on with our agenda minutes, we sent out the minutes from our March 6th meeting. People had a chance to look at those, and if so, does anyone want to make a motion?
Fred Russo will make that motion.
Fred makes a motion to approve the March 6th meeting minutes. Is there a second?
Chadwick seconds.
Second, Joe Chadwick. Further discussion? All those in favor, Joe Chadwick,
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo,
Fred Russo's in favor.
Joe Vayuso. Can you unmute Joe?
Just requested the unmute. There you go.
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Marcy,
Marcy's in favor.
and chair is also in favor. Okay. So any correspondence, Jane, that you're aware of, or John or Harry?
I am not aware of any.
Yeah.
Okay,
Harry Smith, former town planner, we have nothing.
okay.
John Guskowski, I don't know if it's too late. I would just remind commissioners again, and Chairman Andrus, I believe you're involved, but there is a land use training session happening on Saturday that is outstanding and so would certainly qualify everyone for their continuing education requirements for commissioner training. So it's Connecticut Bar is putting it on. I don't know if you guys have had opportunity to sign up, but that's happening Saturday.
Great, thanks, John. I know we did send out the brochure. I think maybe a few of us have signed up for that.
Chuck, you're speaking there, aren't you?
Yeah, that's the only reason they put me late, because they wanted to keep the crowd there. They put me early.
That's where I'm attending just for that.
Yeah, so
I'll see you there.
Okay. Yeah, there was some 600 when last I checked, but there's a lot of people.
They said they closed it out.
Did they?
Yeah, that's what it said. I got a notice.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah, no, there's some good people there. I mean, not there's some good lawyers. Okay, minutes we approve, correspondence, other business, interpretation of section 4.8 H3, caretaker's quarters. Jane, you want to go over that with us?
I would love to. So I was recently, I'm just going to read this. It's much easier. Are you getting my screen?
Yes.
You have it? Okay. So the owner of 168, 195 Main Street has a tenant for the retail store that's on the ground floor that they're going to be opening soon. And it's called Teddy's Store. Currently, above the store, they have approved storage and office space. The space is zoned as BL Local Business District, and accessory apartments are not permitted per section 4.8.H.1, which is shown at the side in red. BL not allowed. The owner would like an interpretation on section 4.8.H.3, which is caretaker's quarters, which is allowed with a special exception approval in the BL district. The tenant who is going to be running the retail business below had stated his interest in living above to be able to keep an eye on his business and stay on the premises in case there were any kind of emergencies, in the evening. So the owner had asked if we could have a definition on caretaker quarters, an interpretation of caretaker quarters, because there is not a definition about caretakers.
Well, I would question what they're taking care of. Does it have to be people or could it be a building? Typically, if it's a building, I would call it a property manager, not a caretaker. I think of caretakers as, in a residential setting, like under item 2. Or item 4, 5, or 6. Even item 1, an accessory apartment, if it's somebody taking care of it. I would think the accessory apartment would be for the caretaker of the principal dwelling. So it seems a bit redundant to me, but that's my first take.
Just question, Jane, would they meet parking issues? I remember there weren't a whole lot of parking on that site. Was there any issue? If it was, I don't know how you calculate the parking for a caretaker.
I didn't go into parking because right now they have sufficient for the retail store downstairs. And prior to this, there was an accountant upstairs using the office as an office, and it's split into 2, storage for one half, office for the other half.
Yeah. I mean, we have this line item and it is allowed as a special exception in the BL zone. BL zone don't typically allow residential uses. There are some, I guess, assisted livings, but you don't, but everything else is, there's a few S's, but generally it's a business zone. So what does it mean? Caretaker's quarters. Does anyone use AI? I threw it in perplexity and says, what's the definition of caretaker's quarters in a zoning regulation? And what I got was caretaker's quarters refers to a residence that is accessory to a non-residential primary use of a site. It's typically used to house an individual responsible for maintenance, security, or 24-hour care and supervision of the primary use. The type of housing is often found in industrial, agricultural, or other non-residential settings where continuous oversight is necessary. I mean, I think I don't know if continual oversight is necessary, but maybe they are. I mean, I guess it is a bit of a stretch. I mean, I think it's, but if it's the person running the store and they're caretaking the store, I mean, why you would need it, I don't know. but it may technically come within it. I don't know. I mean, the fact that it is not a residential use, but I mean, my initial impression was more like a superintendent type of thing, someone who lives there, watches the units. That's what a caretaker was. But, I think it could be, doesn't necessarily have to be that, but I don't know what.
Excuse me.
Well, Joe Chadwick
Joe.
speaking.
Yes, Joe.
In the days of steam boilers, you would often have a janitor or somebody living in a school building or industrial building because you needed to have constant observation of a steam boiler. That's not the case anymore, but the concept of a caretaker and the idea of living near where you work is not a bad idea. And from my days in the fire company, and I realize there are things called Knox boxes now that I've seen all over town that didn't exist in those days with that frequency. But the number of automatic fire alarms calls that one tends to make at 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning that are just simply a transient signal. And then you're waiting outside the building and you've got no key holder. And you're trying to decide, should we break in the building and see if there's a fire or not, or wait till the key holder gets here? The idea of having somebody on site available to open up the building is helpful. Granted, as I said, there are Knox boxes all over town now, so maybe that's not even an issue in this day and age. But I don't see a compelling reason to deny a caretaker definition for somebody who wants to live over their store.
Gene, was that what limitation would you put in to ensure that it's the person responsible for the store? I mean, would it be the
Realistically, once I've walked out the door, there isn't any absolute, but there would be something on the certificate of zoning compliance that would say condition, I'm trying to think of what the wording would say, but caretaker's quarters above for tenant related to retail store below, not to be used as an accessory apartment by others, or some kind of wording to that effect. The reality of the situation is the office that's upstairs that they're talking about already has a bathroom, which of course that's great because it's an office, but it already has a kitchen fitted out in it because it was an accountant that had the office, and in tax season he didn't want to go home. He just slept there and had like a little kitchenette area so that he could make, have a sink and something, kettle and all that kind of stuff, so he can make coffee in the morning. And that's, I think, where this idea came from, because there was already a kind of kitchenette in there that this accountant had put in.
James? Fred, any thoughts?
No, I'm just going to listen. I really don't at this moment.
Okay. Joe Vayuzo, thoughts? We got to unmute Joe here.
You are unmuted.
Yeah, well, I'm wondering what are they selling down below retail that requires somebody has to be upstairs? Is there some kind of maintenance has to be done after store hours, or is it just?
No, it's a convenience store. No food, just drinks, snacks. Not sure what else they're selling.
Yeah. Well, to me, it sounds like more like an accessory apartment than anything more than that. But I'm not opposed to having somebody upstairs, but I think they're stretching the actual use of it, going under that heading instead of actually calling it an accessory apartment. Because what they're watching down below doesn't require watching, as far as I could see. It's a retail store selling hard goods. That'll be all.
Thanks, Joe. Fred, any more thoughts?
I don't know. It just I kind of agree with Joe, but well, both Joes, they both make very, very good, excellent points. That's why I'm kind of like lost for words. You know, you know, I think we have to always be careful what we either allow or permit, because then we set a precedent for the next one to come. And you know, it sounds to me like an accessory apartment. I mean, if someone can live there, that's more than just a caretaker spot where during the day, you know, you go there and have your lunch or use a bathroom. Sounds like something when you're gonna be there, you can eat, sleep, drink, use bathroom. That to me seems like an accessory apartment. And the fact that it's over store is irrelevant, actually. I mean, technically, could it be rented? You know, because that would be in the back of my mind. It starts out as being used as a caretaker's apartment, and then it ends up becoming an accessory apartment, which was never designed to be. But somewhere in the past, it's kind of grew into being that. So you know, I think it's kind of a slippery slope on the way we interpret this thing.
Great. Thanks, Fred. Marcy, anything else?
I feel like they're asking for the accessory apartment because they're probably gonna have late hours for the convenience store, and, you know, as my husband says about high school kids, nothing good happens after midnight. Or, you know, like, are you gonna have late hours, you know? And if so, is there a greater risk for robbery because they're after hours, or, you know, that, or are you trying to house your employees so that they can, you know, be closer? You know, sometimes you see businesses like that where they're, you know, the employees are brought in and stay in a space to work the hours. Like, you know, you see a lot of that with like nail salons and things like that. They'll, you know, they'll bus in people from long distances because they don't have licenses, and, you know, I've seen scenarios like that. So but I mean, to me, you know, I just, in my mind, I divide it between caretaking of people and property management of a property. And property management of a property doesn't, in my mind, require a livable space unless there's something happening in the business, like hours or staffing, that would, you know, would be benefited by it. And I haven't, you know, they're not asking that, or they're not giving us that information. They're just asking us for a definition of caretaker. So I would kind of go back to them and get a little more detail about, you know, is it the owner, is it the employees, are there late hours, so on and so forth. But it feels like an accessory apartment for the benefit of the owner to make use of the space.
We could say, why don't you seek a variance and get an accessory apartment? If he does that, I mean, then he has to deed restrict it to affordable, which I wouldn't mind, but
Good point.
Right.
but I wouldn't oppose it. I mean, I don't know. But
Well, I don't know why we have that item in our regs. I'm surprised Harry didn't take it out in our last regulation revision.
I don't know. I mean, I was initially thinking, hey, look at the fact it's not restricted to residential because it's in the BL zone, although there are residential uses, I guess, like in the BL zone, what, a nursing home or something? Or if you looked at the list, I mean, Jane, I don't even know where it went.
Oh, it's right here. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. I just,
You could have letting of rooms. That's a site plan use in the BL zone. That's weird.
Yeah, they
Maybe
just
it's
seem
a
they seem
non-conforming.
outdated to me.
Yeah. Because most residential uses are prohibited except caretaker's quarters. Assisted living, I guess assisted living, but in congregate housing.
Well,
But
it is listed, you know, caretaker is listed under residential uses. It's not listed under
yeah, no.
business uses. That was my initial take from it, you know,
Yeah,
and
this
firms, caretakers, you know, like as far as taking care of the boiler in an apartment building, or letting of rooms for, um,
right.
poor
Yeah,
people who are just coming to the country or something, or, you know, like
right.
these seem like older terms.
Right. These are the business zones. These aren't the residential zones. These are the business zones the list of uses, and there are some residential uses allowed in business zones, and caretakers one is allowed. So that made me think, okay, well, maybe it could be something. I mean, Joe raised a good point. What are they caring for? I mean, if it's a convenience store, what do you need? I mean, Joe Chadwick's point was that, well, if there's a fire alarm or something, you know, to have someone right there. And maybe he's especially concerned that there's going to be, he's open late and that they need to
Have a
I don't
presence
have
on the
someone
site
right
because
there
of,
or something. I don't know. I mean, that's it seems a bit of a stretch, but can they actually make that case? I don't, you know.
Chuck, Fred Russo,
Yes.
you recall that we had a similar situation on a commercial building right here in Indian Neck where it's now Guacamole's. It was called a Blue something before, Blue Cottage, I think. And if you recall, the applicant came and wanted to convert the second floor office. The way it was originally zoned was that there wasn't enough space for an office space on the first floor. It was all retail and food and whatever. But the second floor was converted to an office. And what the applicant wanted was to convert the second floor office, which was very similar to what you were saying with the kitchenette and the bathroom and, you know, whatever, to an apartment. And if I remember correctly, we said no.
Yeah.
It sounds like a very similar situation. I mean, that doesn't seem like a hardship to me, you know, not being able to go up to an apartment. If you have a retail store, there's lots of retail stores that people just go home at the end of the day.
Yeah, you know, I think the ultimate question is this a caretaker? Is this being used as a caretaker's quarters? And it would be restrictions. That couldn't you rent it to anyone? It would just have to be the store operator. And you know, and there have to be some rationale for showing that he's needs to be there for off hours, I guess, you know.
Chuck,
Yes.
just to add to Joe's comments earlier, the fire marshal had them have a lockbox put on this property, so they do have a lockbox.
Okay. Well, Jane, you could I mean, it seems like close to a pretext for an accessory apartment, close to it. But I guess maybe if he can make some showing that this particular use that he's, I mean, I think the owner has other convenience stores that have it. They have a history of being, you know, vandalism or something, and then they could show that that's deterred by having someone present or something, and give me examples. I maybe can make a case, but it seems like it's right now it's kind of borderline pretextual. That's my impression. But I wouldn't necessarily. I don't know. I maybe give him the opportunity to show, you know, answer Joe Vayuzo's questions. Why does he even need to be there? Because that's what it looks like. Why do you need a caretaker for a convenience store to live on the site? It's not like you need to check the oil or whatever and see what he says.
Okay.
I mean, and then check back if you want. So, yeah. And then he also has, you know, he can apply. You can also go for a variance. Our ZBAs are very generous. So, yeah. Okay. Okay. Next item is an informal discussion, possible residential use at 100 Commercial Parkway. Is the representative here for that?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Timothy Lee on behalf of the applicant. Address is 107 Monowee Street in Branford. I'm here tonight on behalf of Vigliotti Construction, who has a contract to purchase the property at 100 Commercial Parkway. It's a 2.4 acre parcel in the BL zone. I also have Ray Sullivan, who is the project architect. We had met with Evan about 3 or 4 weeks ago to discuss the development of this property. And we discussed the possibility of doing an affordable housing application pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 8-30G for this property. Evan said that he had not been involved in an affordable housing project and did not think an affordable housing project had come before the commission in some time. So he suggested that we write to the commission and ask to have an informal discussion regarding the commission's thoughts about the appropriateness of an affordable housing application at this particular site. I did have, I'll say, pleasure of sitting through a couple commission meetings over the last couple of years where you discussed this property and neighboring property. And I recall that there was some discussion about the suitability of this location or an abutting property owner property for affordable housing. But before we went through the process of submitting the application, we wanted to come before you on the advice of Evan and just discuss the options for development with you. Ray Sullivan is on the call as well. He's the project engineer. He has prepared a schematic drawing of what a development at this site could look like. I'm happy to, if the commission's interested, have Ray show you what his concept plan is for the development of this property.
Certainly.
Good evening, Ray Sullivan of the Sullivan Architectural Group, 129 Broad Street in Milford. So if I can share the screen. If you can all see that image.
Yes.
The first thing I'd like to say is we're not presenting a design. I did a series of sketches, 3 quick sketches. Say a building could go here, here, or here on the site. But each time I did that, when I developed a 3-story building, we ended up with a unit count of approximately 80 units. And we were parking anywhere from 105 to 115 parking spaces. This particular sketch has the majority of the units as 1 bedrooms. There are about 20% 2 bedrooms and about 11% studios. But again,
would it be possible? Can you give us a Google Maps, maybe a street view and a Google, just to show where we are on this, where the site is? I don't know if that's available. And that was,
if I could explain this, so this bend in Commercial Parkway right here.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
This is the curb cut. This is the curb cut into the Walmart parking lot.
Oh, so it's right next, right? Okay, south.
Where my cursor is the access into the Walmart parking lot. So people come in, turn into that parking lot, and look all the way across the parking lot to the Walmart beyond.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, John Guskowski, I can just throw it up on the screen real quick, and then you can go back if you want.
Yeah, can we do that? Do you mind? I think it would help us all get some orientation to what is surrounding it and all that stuff. So, okay. So we're going up the road.
And so I believe the site is to the right.
Okay.
What goes to the left?
As we go down around the bend, and you can see the Walmart here in the distance.
Okay.
Okay. Can you do an aerial?
So
okay.
This is the site. This is the property in question, I believe.
Is this Google Earth?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is from well, it's Google Maps. Yeah.
Okay, Google Maps. Okay. Okay, so that's
a residential zone. It was about a residential area.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
all right. Sorry, Ray,
yep.
you can put your screen back up.
Yeah, Ray. Thanks. Just
okay.
Getting context. Yep.
So what we did just see is that this was, it's a vegetated site, and that image we saw, we're pulling around the corner of Commercial Parkway, and this right here is the access into the Walmart parking lot. So it's a kind of an access road. We then turn and go into the parking lot, and Walmart's on the far side. There are 2-story apartment buildings over on this side, and there are 3-story residences down the way a little bit. This is just up from Chipotle and Starbucks off of Route 1.
Okay, so, so you expect it would be filing this as an 830G?
That is correct. That's our expectation.
Okay, so that would be 30% affordable, 15% at the 60% and 15% at the 80% median income.
That is correct
Yes.
as well.
Yeah.
Right.
You should give seminars. I heard.
He is.
I know, that's what I heard.
Okay. 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 Well, I mean, what are the alternatives? I mean, we have our own, I guess, I don't know, we have incentive housing and other things like that, but it sounds like, you know, this is, yeah, but I don't know what, you know, it's the first time I'm seeing it. You know, it's,
Yep.
I mean, I guess I know there were sewer issues that we were talking about that were up there, but I assume that's something you guys
There are sewer issues, and we've been in contact with the town engineer. Those sewer issues are in the process of working themselves out. There's some things that has to be done on the town's perspective, but it's probably not as big an issue as originally everybody thought it was going to be. So we feel confident enough that the sewer issue will be resolved, that we can kind of start the zoning process, and hopefully the resolution of the sewer issue will go step in step with our zoning process.
Okay.
So obviously, we're not asking the commission to approve the application tonight. This was just a conceptual plan.
Right.
We were here because the town thought it'd be a good idea to bring it before the commission informally, at least to let the commission know our thoughts on the property. I'm glad to see that the town has brought John aboard. Is that the individual that should be the contact person for us in developing this property? Or
well, actually, John is doing a great service, but we did just hired someone new that's going to start mid-April, a permanent planner. John is filling in, so probably within that was the last item on the agenda. I think mid-April we're gonna have we'll have a new planner.
Okay, terrific. That should work well with our timing.
Sure. So let's go around. Joe Chadwick, any thoughts?
Affordable housing is always a great thing. It's an unutilized patch of land. It's walking distance to Walmart. Well, I'm not a fan of Walmart. At least you can buy groceries. I'm not sure why we need the blunt force trauma of an 830G, but I'm in favor of the concept, and I am just curious if they're depending on LIHTC credits in order to finance this, given the current political climate. But
the short answer is we haven't looked at those credits, although we've started to look at those credits. There's been some initial discussion, but we haven't gone through that. That's not the driving force for this application, but if there's something we could take advantage of, I think the owner would try to take advantage of that. With regard to the 8-30G application, basically it's a density driven decision. And that's why we ultimately landed on the 8-30G application for this property.
What alternatives did you look at?
Well, under the BL zone, we looked at the yield under the BL zone, and we ended up with roughly 45 to 50 units. And based on what the cost of the property and the cost of development was, the applicant or the developer did not think that the cost would justify 45 to 50 units. We did discuss some overlay zones with Evan and ultimately decided that due to the size of the property, the location of the property, that those probably would not work for this location. So we kind of circled back to the 8-30G application.
Okay. Fred, thoughts?
Yeah, well, my thought is this, that I always like when the developer lives in town, owns property in town, has come before the commission many times, and has generally produced what he said he was going to produce. So, you know, my initial feeling is that, yeah, I would be in favor of it.
Thanks, Fred. Joe Vayuzo, I know, Joe, what you have thoughts?
You are unmuted.
Are we talking, I think you said 2.5 acres?
Correct.
And about how many units are we talking on that 2.5 acre site? Do you have some idea?
About 80 units.
And in what, 3 buildings, three-story buildings?
Yeah, it looks like the architects here, there are a number of designs
yeah,
he's come up with. This one is just for schematic purposes, but yeah, they'd be
I think
3-story buildings.
Well, all right.
just to be clear, it's just a single building. It's one 3-story building that's L-shaped, that's all.
All right. So you're talking about 80 units.
Like that's the footprint of the building.
Well, what
And it would just be
responsibility
3
does the
stories,
town
pretty
have
simple.
to accommodate your sewage accommodations? What is the long-term fix for this area? Because don't forget, we got that other property where Amazon was going to go, and if they do something there, they got to assume, I would think, of some kind of usage there, which is going to have some kind of sewage as well. So, I mean, how much of a fix is it going to be to accommodate you and possibly other developments that's potentially there?
It's a good question, and it's originally why my client was not interested in developing this property, but because of the concern about the septic. We did meet with the town engineer. He was part of the meeting with Evan. And I guess a fair summary of that meeting was, I think there's sewer capacity for this use at this property. There was a concern, and this is my layman's term and not an engineering term, that there was a problem with the piping that needed to be addressed. It wasn't a capacity issue, it was more of a piping issue, and that those issues were going to be addressed in the recent future.
Piping where? On that site, in that area there, or how far are we talking improving the piping? How much of an involvement is this? Or is the contractor or the applicant willing to finance that new piping?
No, we haven't been asked to do that. The town is going to fix the piping, whether we develop this property or not. So the town is already undertaking that obligation as part of its municipal duties to do that. It's certainly an advantage to my client's property, but the town is undertaking that on its own.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, it's I'm concerned about density on these projects, but also there's such a demand for housing. Why? I don't know how it got this way in the last few years, because I don't see all these. I don't see where. I can't understand where all these people are coming from that need all this housing. I mean, are we getting that many more people in this state or in this area? It doesn't make sense, because housing is not just here. It seems like it's quite, in the whole state of Connecticut and beyond. That it's just strange to me where all this population is coming from. But anyway, that's here and there. That has nothing to do with you guys. But yeah, I'm concerned about the density there. But 80 units is not out of the realm of exorbitant type of numbers, but it's up there. But it's not that bad. Not as bad as I've heard other units going in, other numbers of units going in per acre. So that's all I have to say right now.
Great. Thanks, Joe. Marcy?
Hi, I think the parking adjacent to the Walmart parking is appropriate. I don't think you're showing the best face of the project, because you're going to come up from behind your illustration, which I think will be quite attractive. I think it's a consistent use with the abutting uses, even if the zone is not consistent with the use proposed. I think that, when you talk about density and sewers, my experience with the sewer authority is they have a first come, first serve kind of scenario, and this project coming before anything happening across the street would make sense. I mean, obviously the market demand is there. You know, we have all the pressure from the state, even though I don't agree how the state calculates affordable housing to increase our percentage of affordable housing. So this helps that. I find the choice to come with an 830G very aggressive and offensive personally, because I think that we as a commission try to look at each project independently for its merits. And I don't think the argument of they need, I mean, I believe the argument that you need 80 units to make it a viable, a feasible project. I don't think that that being the reason to go to an 830G is substantive enough to make that choice. Um, the maybe there's something about it that I'm not aware of relating to the sewers, but my understanding was that they had to do a forgetting the term, a some kind of a study that the town had done, and I think the issue is not necessarily on site here, but it's that the properties coming from this side of town towards, I believe it happens near the railroad. There's some issues with the crossing there because it's inverted or backed up or whatever. And, those are it's a town issue to fix, but it's, I think the town should also look at how it addresses the sewer allocation, because I don't know that first come, first serve really represents all the landowners in town necessarily, but yeah, I just feel like there's some other reason why they're coming at us with the 830G, and I really don't like it, that aspect of it. I think the project and the merits of the project is, perfectly appropriate to come in as a PUD, and why wouldn't you just come in as a PUD and and have us evaluate it from that end? I mean, I can just tell, 105 spaces, you've got, busing at the end of the street, you're near a food source. I mean, it's a great location for what you're proposing. And it, unless you think that the town is going to have an issue with the term affordable housing, I think that's a branding exercise to explain that there's different levels of affordability, in terms of income and what you would be proposing for affordable, right? Because there's different percentages of the mean income in town. So I think that that's a dialogue that needs to be presented when you present the affordable housing, so that people can be educated about what it is, and not be so offended by it, because the rental rates right now are crazy. And I've worked with a lot of tenants where it makes more sense for them to go to find renting situations with private landlords, because they can better afford it than what some of the other type, bigger housing options hold them, and these are people that make 60, 80, 90,000, they're young kids, which we need to attract in town, for rentals, and I think, a lot of people want to come to Branford, a lot of people want to come to Branford and rent, a lot of people want to come to Branford and rent in buildings where they have community around them. So I think that this scenario is a really good scenario for that. Anyways, I've been kind of just word vomiting, but hopefully that's some helpful advice.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marcy. I'll give a few things. The density is high. I'll confirm 32 units per acre. I mean, you don't see that. That's higher than we'd normally approve for PDDs and incentive housing. I think it's 20. And it just is. That said, I can see the benefits of an 830G because they don't create precedent. In my mind, 830G is their own thing. I mean, you got to have a reason to deny it. If you approve it as a PDD, someone else could say, "Oh, you did for them, you got to do it for me." For 830G, you got no choice. I mean, okay, and it requires a larger percentage of affordable than what we would do under a PDD or incentive housing. The 30% affordable, including the 15% at the 60% level for the greater needs. I think that's the benefit. So to me, that's almost a kind of a weird selling point, even though it is, it is saying heck with your regs. So but I kind of get that. But you know,
But
it's
Chuck, are
just
you
kind of a
saying that
psychology.
are you saying that they, I mean, if they're gonna come in as affordable project, there's no vehicle to propose what percentage is affordable across all levels of income unless they do the 830G?
No,
I mean, is that why the 830G vehicle
we
was
can
created?
invent
'Cause it just,
we can invent our own zone. I mean, you could say you could do this. Would you change it differently? Would we do a PDD? I have a concern, even though you never say it. I have concerns about create your own zone PDDs in general, because you do it for one. There's always the thing. Well, you did it for them. You got to do it for us. And the amount of percent, the amount of affordable. We heard that with Smith over. We only required certain amount of units as affordable, and then when he went to the other side to Regal, and or the Regal, we wanted more affordable. Well, you only did it, you only required less for them. It's just inevitable. And that whole that whole thing shoots out the window when you file an 830G because of such a high percentage of affordable, I think, than what we require relative to what we require under the PDD, which is a 20% at the 80% level. 20% of the units at the 80% income level is affordable. This is requiring 30%. So you get a larger number, and half of those are at the 60% level. So I think it, you know, and that's the reason why they don't have to comply with our regs or invent our own reg, whatever. So there's a certain inverse, you know,
Logic.
and I get that, you know, you're not respecting us issue, and you're doing this, I don't have to comply with your regs, but I'm assuming this developer is going to kind of want to do something that makes us happy, you know. So if we have any landscaping and everything else, you know, they're going to want to comply with us, even if it is an 830G. But but they're looking at the density anyway. That's kind of, we're all sort of word mouthing here, and that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Can I ask a question?
Well, I'll finish my point,
Okay.
and then we'll
I'm sorry.
bounce back. The other thing is, and I do harbor some of the suspicions that Joe Vayuso was suggesting, was that, you know, we're in a cycle that apparently we need a lot of housing. You know, it's not like our population has increased or whatever. I don't know, maybe less people per household, but I don't get it. We've heard a lot about that, the housing shortage and so forth. But I think we could get to cycles where, you know, the rents go down, the places become more run down, and that is, you know, there are, you know, parts of other towns you've seen where things that start out good could be poor, and this, you know, that's sort of a fear in the background as well. So go ahead. What's your question? Those are my.
You made the comment that our PDDs have a previous amount, say it's 50 apartments. Couldn't you?
Well, I was saying the amount of affordable in the PDDs.
Right, but if you were to take the balance of the 30 and require them to be affordable because, you know, that exceeds the threshold of what we typically do in a PDD, how would that compare to the numbers that they're proposing under the 830J? I'm just curious, you know, because it just seems like there's ways to be consistent. You know, you give them the density bump because they're going to be 60% affordable, you know, at the 60% rate affordable or whatever it might be. But I'd be curious about those two analyses.
I didn't quite understand it.
So you said that you said in a project like this with the PDD would typically, and maybe the numbers won't be 50 units, and they're asking for quite a few more. That differential of from 80 to 50, say that's 30 units. How does that compare to if they were required to be affordable, not just saying 20% of the total? How does that compare to what happens under the 830J? As a way for us to be consistent with what we're doing with PDDs across town, if they were to come in under a PDD vehicle, under an 830G vehicle, because that seems to be where the discussion is a little bit.
Yeah, or incentive housing. I mean, there's a whole mixed thing of whether you should have PDDs at all. I mean, I still am ambiguous. The idea, we say in our regs, it's usually try to do something that's a mixed use that you can't do under the standard zoning regulations. The idea isn't to have a PDD for increased density. You try to do there, and there's some elements to that. There is that, you know, for even the Regal site, we were reusing the development, reusing the site and we sort of do, you know, it was a mixed use type of thing. Even on the other side of 55, that project, that was a mixed use, and we required some affordable. This is 100% residential. I would kind of be opposed to just a PDD for 100% residential, simply for more density.
How about
I
incentive
would say
housing?
that the reason for that, then you use the incentive housing, because that's what that is.
And
I
what
wouldn't just say
percentage
do a
does that give
PDD.
you for affordable under the incentive housing?
20%. 20% at the 80% level. And you would get but the density you wouldn't get as much. So I don't, that I'm almost more, my sort of intuitive comment is, okay, you could build more, give them the more density, and we get more affordable out of it. So, maybe it's a good trade-off. The other thing is that I don't think this location, I'm concerned about public comment, because we are sort of responsible for our town. And I don't see, I imagine if they said, let's do this down by the Jefferson Woods or down there, or let's go, down in the middle of an R zone, I thought people would be coming out like crazy. I don't see that happening here. I think the location, it is kind of a commercial area that you're not going to get a lot of objections, and that's a plus, I think. So, and that's sort of what we're doing all along. We're seeing commercially zoned site, BL site, that now we're saying let's go residential, and there's more acceptance of that, and less objections. So that's something else I'm putting in the equation too, for mine.
So
I think Chuck is making some very good, and the logic train in Chuck's comments is very good. If we were to do this anyway, if we were to do this as PDD, we'd set a precedent. Excuse me. We do this as a 830G, our hands are tied. There are very few sites like this that have, I don't want to say no context. There's no such thing as a no context site, but there is such a minimal context at this site that we can afford the density. There is the apparent infrastructure. There is, a sufficient roadway. There's connectivity. All the stuff indicates density is not really an issue here. If we were to do this as a PDD, we'd set a preference, and there could be some other site where this level of density or something approaching it would be monstrous. And how would we shut it down because we've already accepted this under a previous PDD? So I withdraw my earlier comment about, the blunt force trauma of a 830G, and follow along pretty well with Chuck's reasoning that this is a logical way to do it. And if you're going to put a lot of density someplace, this is a fairly reasonable place to accelerate density.
You can see why it feels intuitively backwards to give up our control of the regulation because of it's an 830G, and I'm just trying to understand the benefit of that. I mean, I think it's a very appropriate use for as much affordable housing at multiple levels as we can get. I don't know what the zoning vehicle is for that, but I mean, I think we have to, I mean, what gives you the sense that it's going to be done correctly as far as say setbacks, or like the building look a little close to the road, and like just evaluating things like that, or for planting, or for access. I mean, all those things need to be handled. And where's the oversight if basically all they have to prove is that there's no reason for us to deny it, for public safety?
I'm assuming, based on the representation, based on the developer's presence in town, that there's a certain amount of good faith that the developer wants to show. That Marcy, if you raise some setback, those very things, we've sort of seen what they want. They got 3 stories. If we were saying, oh, and there is, it's a big density. I think it is 32 units. That is a lot, but if we get over that, then what else do we want? Do we want landscaping? Do we want I don't know, what other amenities, that granted this is an affordable housing that we think are reasonable, and ask for them. And then
I guess
that's
I'm trying to understand how much of it is it 100% affordable housing? Because it's an A30G, is that what they're saying? Or
it's
is it
30%
a rental
of the
unit
units.
that's got 30% affordable in it?
What do you mean? I'm just going, it's meets the state's definition of affordable housing project, which is a project that sets aside 30% of the units, and someone do 30% of 80 to give me the numbers.
We get 24 units, 12 of which would be at a rate of 60% of the median income, and 12 units would be rented to people, leased to people making 80% of the median income.
Okay, and flesh that out, Tim. What is today a one-bedroom unit in Branford for 60%? What would that be? Does someone know that? Because you have to do the math. And
yeah,
have you?
I haven't done it for this particular application, but I remember doing one in Branford for an incentive housing application about a year or so ago. And for a one bedroom, it was in the neighborhood of $1,300 to $1,400 a month.
It's still a lot, but that's because one bedrooms are going for like 2,000 or something, right? I mean, I don't know. Yeah, that's
one bedroom's about could go for 1,500 or 1,600.
Yeah,
so it would be less, which would be good.
Right. If I'm just saying, if that's what it is, if a one bedroom was 1,700, what's 60% of 1,700? I'm just throwing that out. I don't know. That's not the way to do it. I know that, but
Although I'd think about it. 60%
anyway,
is 1,020 a month. And there's a lot of
okay.
people that need units that are in that range.
Right. Yeah, I think so. And this is the way you get that.
That's why I'm saying I'm trying to maximize the number of units for that and still get a quality building and a building that is, I mean, it costs to build more too. I mean, the building materials are expensive. So, I understand the game that you got to maximize the number of units, and part of that is what your takeaway is for rents, right?
Yeah, so if we decide to proceed with the application, obviously we'd submit those numbers to the commission as part of our affordability plan. So you'd be able to determine what the rent would be at 60% and the rent would be to those making 80% of the median income.
Yeah, we always throw out those numbers, but we don't know what that means in real life. I think that would be helpful. What's a studio at a 60% and 8%? What's a one bedroom at 60% and 8%? Just so we know. So we know what we're talking about. It's good publicity too, because that's what's going on.
All right. Well, I appreciate the commission taking this up tonight. We have a lot to think about. We appreciate the comments, and we'll try to take those into consideration. We'll talk to the new town staff, and hopefully we'll be in front of you in the near future with an application for this property of some sort.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Right. Okay, what else is next on our list is planner's report. Who do we got? John, you got anything for us?
Well, John Guskowski. Hello, everyone. I'm John Guskowski. We were initially, very briefly, we were initially hired to help Evan as during Harry's departure, as they sought a new planning director. It sounds like, and I'm knocking on wood, that you may have a good lead on a planning director, but meanwhile, Evan is also gone. And so our arrangement with the town was sort of expanded and made a little bit more flexible, I think, to keep the trains rolling in the land use office, and help basically wherever we can. Again, my plan is we started on Monday. Happy to be working with Branford. We had worked with Harry a couple of years ago, doing some application review during a previous staffing transition, so we're a little familiar with the regulations and procedures. We'll be available. I'm going to be staffing the land use office on Mondays if anyone wants to come down and say hello in person, and I'm available via email, text, what have you. And we'll be helping out in the continued transition, as in Harry's much delayed retirement and the onboarding of the new guy, as well as the onboarding of whoever may replace Evan. So we're on call. We're here to help. I would ask in the meantime, just that the commission maybe make a formal authorization that I would be considered town planner for purposes of signing documents as needed, or to direct staff to affix my signature to documents as needed. And we can go from there.
Great. So does everyone understand that? Because John's going to be the one in the office, because
There's no one in the
and you may
office.
need to sign the plans, and so we need to give him a title here. So can we give is there a motion to approve John Guskowski as our acting town planner at present until a new planner is officially onboarded?
Fred Russo will make that motion.
Motion by Fred. Is there a second?
Chadwick will second.
Second by Joe. Further discussion? All in favor? Joe Chadwick.
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo.
Fred Russo in favor.
Joe Vayuzo.
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Marcy.
Marcy's in favor.
And Chair is also in favor. The town has hired a new town planner who's going to start April 14th. His name is Michael, not Michael, Michael. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Whackers. I was involved. I was asked to sit on an interview. He is has a lot of experience. He is presently working for the city of Cleveland.
Wow.
and has done a lot of stuff there. He formerly worked for the city of Middletown about 10 years ago for about a 10-year stretch. He seems very qualified and excited to come on board. I think his family's moving back, as a connection here. I think John is you know of him, and you think he's a good catch. So
John Guskowski, this is a great, I wasn't aware that McKeel and his wife, who is also a planner, worked with the Capital Region, we're coming back to Connecticut. I knew them when they were here previously. McKeel is a great planner. It's, as I said to Chuck earlier, you guys it's a good get for Branford.
right. Yeah. So that's good. So that's I think it starts like April 14th. So he'll need some time to get aboard. So that'll be I guess, our second meeting in April that he'll be here. So
Chuck, Fred Russo.
Yes.
And now that we have a town planner at least lined up, will an assistant town planner be also lined up, or is that?
My expectation is, yes, we will be looking for an assistant town planner, and I think the new town planner will be involved in that search as well.
Okay, good.
So
As well he should.
yes.
Might
So,
be.
yeah. I don't think it's been. I think they're going through the budget season. I don't think they've eliminated the position. So
Good.
I think that's out there. So good.
I just think Harry can attest that there's a lot of work that comes through that office. And,
Right.
There certainly is.
Put on one person is a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just so you know, you're getting this hot off the press. This came out as a formal announcement, I think between early this afternoon and the meeting. So
Good. Good to hear.
Oh, quick replacement. That was good. Timing.
Yeah, it was fortuitous. It was lucky.
Yeah.
Harry, anything as an alumni town planner that you want to add under the planner's report or anything?
I just want to thank the commission for all the attention you've paid to the package of zoning regulation amendments adopted earlier tonight. I know it's the end result of a long process that was protracted, a little delayed by staffing issues and development. Review pressure is here, but I'm glad we got to the end of it, and I'm glad I was here to facilitate it to that far. So still is my understanding, we'll see what happens when the new planning director comes in, but probably working on a couple of other small projects, including the small cities revolving loan program and things like that. At least trying to keep a couple of little administrative things that I'm have had on my plate moving in the interim. So, and other than that, you may not see me very frequently in this venue anymore. But so I just want to thank you again for all the support you've given me over the years that I've been here. And I know we've had our goodbyes before, but this could be the last one. So thank you again,
I
everyone.
don't think so.
Yeah,
Fred's
you're not getting off
dubious.
that easy, Harry.
6
Harry,
months
we-
from now, Harry will be making the same speech.
I'll say that every meeting I'm at. Oh, thank
Yeah,
you. Goodbye.
We do
Halfway
appreciate it, Harry, and I haven't hesitated to. You're here, Harry. Tell us what we just. I don't even ask.
It's all fine. I'm so
Yeah,
happy I
whatever.
can help smooth things out just a little bit. And again, this whole
Yeah.
process is precipitated by my decision to retire. So I feel some responsibility to try and be here while we go through the rapids till a new, hopefully stretch of pretty calm water with a new planning director.
Right.
Will you be helping him with the transition?
I'm certainly would be available for any kind of questions. I expect to be here. I'm going to talk to Mr. Cosgrove about how long, and I think the new planning director have some involvement in how. I mean, there certainly is, I think, availability to keep me on a little bit to help as much as I can, but we'll just take it step by step, I think.
Great. Well, thanks again, Harry, and I mean, even tonight, even like getting the things operated. So yeah,
I think we're very fortunate to have Mr. Guskowski stepping in also in the interim and
yes,
vastly relieved when to see
know.
him show up here. So that's great.
okay, great. Anyone else have anything else? Not then someone make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Motion to adjourn by Marcy. Is there a second?
By you, so
Chadwick,
second.
Second by whoever got it. Joe
Ayuso.
Hayes.
Whoever.
Joe Hayes.
Joe.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Joe Chadwick,
Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo,
Fred Russo is in favor.
Joe Hayuso,
Joe Ayuso in favor.
Marcy,
Marcy's in favor.
Bear's also in favor. Okay, good night,
Good night,
everyone.
everybody.
Night.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Night.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.